Hi Kinds, welcome back to our channel. In this video, we'll be talking about the riots which are taking place in UK as we speak and what that could mean for us living here in Canada. Could something like that happen in Canada? Let's explore.
Hotels housing asylum seekers set on fire. Mosques and immigration centres targeted nationwide. Violence, racist attacks, looting. Police overwhelmed, injured. Communities terrified. A wave of unrest started after an attack at a Taylor Swift dance class in Southport, but fuelled by racist misinformation.
Britain is facing its worst riots in the last 13 years. There have been many clashes between the far-right native British people and what seems to be largely immigrants coming from the Muslim countries. There have been more than 110 policemen that have been injured on account of the riots, and many of them have serious injuries. Let's try to understand what led to this riot. The incident that may have caused the spark was a mass stabbing that happened on July 29 of 3 young British girls in a dance class, and many others were injured.
3 young girls were killed: Elsie Stankham, BB King and Alice de Silva Aguiar.
This happened in the English town of Southport, and the criminal was a 17-year-old minor. Because the criminal was a minor, he was still 17 years old, his identity was not revealed at first by the police. But what then happened was a fake account called Channel 3 News posted misinformation on X or Twitter that criminal was an immigrant that had moved to Britain on a boat few years ago and that he was a Muslim.
This violence began in part after misinformation about the attacker.
An X account called Artemis for Now was, as far as we can tell, one of the first accounts to publish the false information that the attacker's name was Ali al-Shakati and that he was an asylum seeker that arrived by boat.
The name is then amplified by a number of accounts, but the most influential was an account called Channel 3 Now News, right? So Channel 3 Now News is not a real news site. It's a fake news site masquerading as a real one. They amplified this and they got loads of retweets.
This post and many others like this spreading misinformation was spread with millions of people in UK, and what that happened was in the peaceful vigil of the 3 young girls, where the community was mourning the deaths of these 3 girls, some people from different parts of the UK started coming to the town of Southport and they started attacking mosques and hostels where asylum seekers were staying in. Far-right groups were seen looting the stores, attacking mosques and performing Nazi salutes in the street. The mobs chanted slogans like "Send them home" and "Islam out." Police had to intervene to stop these riots and many policemen were also injured. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer condemned the violence as far-right thuggery and a racist rhetoric.
This is not protest. It is organised, violent thuggery.
So basically that instance that happened was an isolated instance of a minor criminal killing those girls, but what was spread online was a planned attack of creating a propaganda against a specific community of Muslims and also immigrants. And once the misinformation was spread, the mob mentality took over and they started attacking mosques and hurling abuses at the immigrants at large. So these videos of the attacks were then spread within the Muslim community. Even Elon Musk, who owns Twitter, spread a fake news which said that the UK government is building detainment centers before realizing that the post that he had shared was a fake news created what looked like a Telegraph headline, but it was falsely created. But by the time Musk realized it and he deleted the post after an hour, that post was already seen by 2 million people. Even though Musk later deleted the post, the screenshots would have been shared and maybe are even continuing to be shared today in various circles on social media. What that does is create a sense of misinformation and false hatred. In order to contain the attacks and limit the amount of misinformation being spread, the judge in the case decided to reveal the name of the criminal. What was then found out that the criminal, who was a 17-year-old boy, was born in UK and was not even Muslim, and he had been charged with multiple counts of murder and attempted murder. So that criminal was born in Cardiff and is not a Muslim. But what was used was this one instance to spread misinformation and call for mob attacks. This is the danger of misinformation that we live in. So as you will see, this one instance, which was not even related to a Muslim immigrant, was used online by spreading fake information to create a sense of hatred towards that entire community. Now, after the far-right thugs had done their bit of harming the society, mob from the other side started coming on the streets and doing the same thing. They started attacking people's house and cars of the native British people, and that further led to a disharmony between both the groups. The police is still trying to contain the violence, but so far more than 110 policemen have been injured. And what was the cause of the riot? The spreading of misinformation. It wasn't the murder of these three innocent girls, which is a horrific instance, but the riots was led largely on account of misinformation. But if you see the video of anti-immigration people within UK or even Canada, you will hardly see a mention of this misinformation. All you will see is that they will blame the mass immigration for the riots. But the riots were not caused by mass immigration. The riots were caused by misinformation. We need to address this. Let's try to look at few snippets from a YouTube video that was shared by a Canadian journalist, and let's try to see how he describes the far-right thugs, which even the UK Prime Minister called as violent far-right thugs. Let's try to see what term is being used to address these people.
British people who have been swept up in anger and frustration over years and frankly decades of mass immigration.
So angry, frustrated British natives. So as you will see, the violent protesters who damaged mosques and libraries and hurled abuses at the community was called angry, frustrated British natives. So the blame is not being put on them. The blame is being put on the immigrants, that because of the immigrants, natives are angry and frustrated. That's why their actions are sort of justified. Now, on the other side, let's try to see what terms are being used to describe the members from the Muslim community.
Angry, knife-wielding Muslim men. The Muslim world. Hostile cultural values. Angry Muslim men holding knives. Masked, knife-wielding, angry Muslim men. A large group of angry Muslim men carrying knives and Muslim men carrying knives. Armed Muslim patrol gangs.
So as you will see, the tone and the words used to describe violent protesters on both sides of the spectrum is so different. On one side, you're calling them angry and frustrated, almost helpless, and on the other side, different sets of words and terminologies are used to describe the Muslim communities. In my opinion, protests are not equal to violence. Protesters can be angry or frustrated on both sides, but as soon as violence starts taking over, as soon as spreading hatred on account of misinformation and racial abuse starts coming into the picture, then that is not a protest. If you are spreading hatred, if you are spreading violence, you are a thug. You can be a far-right thug or you can be a far-left thug. And anytime a mob comes together, there is a sense of mob mentality that comes into the picture. It happens in all the communities that we have seen. So just to blame one community for the riots and not address the elephant in the room, which is misinformation, is also advancing your own propaganda, which I think we should avoid. Another propaganda which is being created is that this could happen in Canada as well.
The UK has opened the floodgates to mass immigration. Entire towns don't look or feel very British anymore due to uncontrolled levels of mass immigration. All of this should be seen as a warning to Canada. If our government doesn't address the concerns of so many peaceful and well-meaning Canadians who simply want to slow down mass immigration, something like this could happen here in our country as well.
People are peaceful now, but they can turn angry and frustrated if the immigration is not controlled. This is a warning to the government to control immigration. These sort of narratives are being created within the social media space in Canada, which to me is a very, very dangerous thing to say. The spreading of misinformation already happens in Canada on a small scale. We saw how the Indian community was blamed for defecating the Wasaga beach based on the TikTok video of one girl which had no evidence. That news was called false by the mayor of Wasaga Beach and also Ontario Parks. Now I know as soon as I say this, people will start coming up with evidence of isolated instances which may have happened where the Indian community is doing something wrong. But I say it again, putting the blame of an isolated instance which happens in all the communities on the entire community is called stereotyping. This is what led to the UK riots, and this is something that we have to avoid in Canada. So I hope that whatever happened in the UK does not happen in Canada. I hope we take lessons out of what happened in the UK to avoid that happening in Canada. Spreading of misinformation should be avoided at all costs. Stereotyping of communities should be avoided at all costs. I empathize with Canadians who see a lot of immigrants coming in to their country and their cities, and that it doesn't look the same anymore. But please understand that most of the immigrants that are coming to Canada are coming to legally created pathway. The government created the policies. The immigrants that are moving here are moving to create a better life for themselves and to assimilate in the Canadian society. I have also made a separate video on how Indians could be doing better as a community. I will link that somewhere here, but if you're an Indian watching this video, please do see that video as well so that we can do our part to be a part of the Canadian society and adopt Canadian values. But to all the native Canadians, my message would be to not spread misinformation. We should not repeat what happened in the UK. So that was the end of the video. I hope you liked it. In case you have any further comments, please mention it in the comment section below. But I hope this video will serve as a reminder to all the people to not spread misinformation, which can have dangerous instances for all of us as a society. We will see you in the next video. Till then, take care. Goodbye.